call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Merab Dvalishvili is taking on Sean O'Malley in a rematch as the main event of UFC 316. This will be for the bantamweight strap. Probably the most undeserved title rematch in a long time. Sean O'Malley defended the belt one time, coming off of a loss to Merab Dvalishvili in September, and now turning around and getting an immediate rematch. Merab, fresh off of a win over O'Malley and Merab by decision. O'Malley and Merab, probably one of the biggest threats in this division, so he's got tons of momentum in this one. He is 19-4 in his career on a 12-fight winning streak. He started his UFC career on a 2-fight losing streak, but since then has not lost. So he's 34 years old, 5'6", with a 68-inch reach. Sean O'Malley is 30 years old. He's 5'11", supposedly. I think we need to verify this 5'11" measurement we keep hearing about Sean O'Malley. And a 72-inch reach with an 18-2 record. So he's going to be 5 inches taller and have a 4-inch reach advantage. And wasn't really able to implement that or use that reach advantage in the last fight. So we'll see how it works out this time for him. But Merab Dvalishvili, these guys don't need tons of introduction. Outstanding grappler with just a ferocious pace. Can push 5 rounds super hard, barely even breathing at the end of fights, in between rounds. Probably has the best cardio in the game. Really weaponizes that, as well as his wrestling ability to push guys to their limits, honestly. And just non-stop, constant pressure, throwing kicks, throwing combos, feinting combos to set up his takedowns, and rinse and repeat, does that all night. So I think we're going to see a lot of the same in this one with Sean O'Malley, who very good striker, decent power, good speed. Has a decent record, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not super impressed on his come up and the quality of opponent that he was facing. Arguably, lost to Petr Yan, beat Aljamain Sterling, and then beat Marlon Vera, who I just don't think that's very impressive, honestly. So I think he's had kind of an easy path to the belt, whereas Merab, O'Malley and Merab, Henry Cejudo, Petr Yan, Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes, Cody Stamann. He's had some tough fights to get to the top, and just back-to-back really good competition. So I think there's a few things that could be tweaked in this fight on Sean's side. I don't really think there's anything that Merab needs to do differently other than not get kicked to the body. But I think Sean can make some small adjustments in his striking, maybe his the offense that he puts out there, a little bit of his footwork. He's not gonna be able to shore up the wrestling or defensive wrestling game, and however long the time was, or just in general, to be able to compete with somebody like Merab in the grappling department. But I think there are a few tweaks that he can make that would give him more of a fighting chance in this one. But still, I think Merab gets it done. I think we're gonna see the same thing that we saw back in September. Merab's going to be circling around the outside, feinting tons, constantly trying to move into Sean, throwing head kicks, throwing leg kicks, feinting combos, getting Sean to back up. And Sean will start to back up. He'll start to throw, kind of desperate punches, 1 or 2 punches to get him to back up. And as soon as he really commits to one, I just see Merab shooting under and getting his takedowns. Or, I see Merab, pressuring, and then he'll throw a right hand or a left hand, and then he'll immediately go for a single, transition to a double, and get Sean to the ground. He was doing that, for all 5 rounds in their last fight. And on the ground, Merab just tons of ground and pound and pressure. Herb Dean was getting annoying in that fight, telling him, and even the commentators were getting on him about just constantly telling them to work and pressure. And it's like, dude, he's working. He's been working the whole 25 minutes, pushing a high pace, looking to land shots on Sean. But I see him getting into the ground, landing the small punches, landing his elbows. Sean might work his way back up to a degree, get to the cage. But then I see Merab just battering him with elbows and knees again, getting his legs locked or getting his hands locked around his waist, controlling him, just beating him up with knees. Maybe letting him up, letting him get back up to his feet, landing good punches, shooting back in, just rinse and repeating that all night. And I think he'll allow Sean to think he's getting back into the fight by letting him get up, and then immediately just take him down, just sap his gas tank, because Sean's never going to have as good of a gas tank as Merab. But, Sean, he was just, in the last fight, he was just very tentative on the feet. And he was really only landing to the body. He would throw, a hard right hand to the body, but not throwing a lot of punches upstairs where they could be kind of slipped under. He had some decent success towards the end of round 3, landing some strikes. But it seemed the entire time he was too afraid to overcommit to anything. He would throw 1 or 2 punches, and Merab would just kind of cover up and back up. But he never really committed to extending his combinations just for fear that, Merab would be waiting and would just duck under him and get his takedowns. So he'll be committing to some heavy shots to the body, I think, in terms of punches, just because when you're throwing low, you're throwing uppercuts, shots to the body, you kind of have your hands low. You've got natural underhooks as the guy shoots in. But I don't see him really opening up on the feet. And, kind of like he did in the last one, I don't see him really throwing leg kicks for fear that they'll get caught, which is, he's got a really good leg kick game, and that's what he needs to utilize to kind of slow down Merab, take out a little bit of the explosivity in his legs. But he's not getting enough respect on the feet, I don't think, to really get Merab on the back foot, to where it's harder for him to shoot takedowns. Merab's the guy who's constantly pushing forward and threatening, and it really allows him to set up his takedowns moving forward, pushing Sean against the fence. There was a metaphor that Dean Thomas used in the last fight, and shout out to Dean Thomas. He needs to be on the commentating crew, but he said trying to hit Merab is like, trying to hit a butterfly in a windstorm. And it's just so accurate because he's constantly floating around. He's moving. He's constantly moving forward, backward, feinting. Feinting takedowns, feinting shots. You just never know what he's really going to do. And he can, usually when you see a guy do that, you expect him to slow down at some point. Like he's going to tire himself out come, end of round 2, beginning of round 3. But this guy just never gets tired. And it's not like he's 34. He's in his prime still. So it's not like I think he's going to slow down anytime soon. He doesn't take tons of damage in his fights to where you're like, eventually this is going to catch up to him. So I think Merab's going to get it done again. I don't think he's going to get the submission. He's not a big submission guy, really. He's just looking to, beat you up for 5 rounds, kind of take the fight out of you and win a decision. But I think Sean, I think he'll work more body shots, more shots to the body, mix up his body shots with his head shots to try and kind of land that kill shot against Merab. But I think he really needs to focus on the midsection to kind of take the wind out of the sails of Merab, maybe sap at his energy levels, but also it's a little safer shot in terms of somebody shooting underneath. Like I said, you can kind of get underhooks or your hands are already down to defend. And I think maybe he'll throw a few more head kicks. It's hard to catch a head kick. All you can really do is, back out of the way or defend. You can't really catch it. And I think he'll try to throw punches with knees under it. And I think that's maybe one of the ways that he can catch Merab, is get Merab think that you're just throwing hands, and that he can shoot underneath it. But then you start throwing hands and throwing knees underneath and try and time the knee as Merab shoots in. And I think he could have some success with that, as well as obviously the front teep kick to the body, which he had success with in the 5th round, I think it was. Hurt him twice with it and then got him with a knee. And if that would have been earlier in the fight, because you could argue he, maybe he won the round with that, just in terms of damage. And if he would have done that a little bit earlier, made Merab a little bit more tentative, sucked at his gas tank a little bit more, the fight could have been a little bit different. So I'm sure he knows that, but I'm sure Merab knows that as well. I think in this fight, Merab took some of his in the last fight, he took some of his bigger punches, so I think he's going to be a little bit more confident to push forward a little bit more, knowing that, the game plan that the strategy that they developed in the last time and implemented to a T, worked perfectly. He won, 4-1, maybe 3-2, if you really want to get granular at it, but had a really good performance. I don't think there's much that they need to change other than shore up a few of the little defensive tweaks there. But like I said, what Sean did well, Merab knows kind of how to plan for that going forward. I don't think he'll give Sean as much respect as he did in the last fight. Usually he's shooting a lot more, being a little bit more grittier, getting guys against the cage and just grinding on them. Whereas in this one, I feel like he spent a lot more time standing out in the open than I thought he would. So I think in this one, maybe he'll be a little bit more in his face, not respect his punching power as much, and really try to get a hold of him sooner so he doesn't take those damaging strikes. But if he doesn't respect Sean's punching power, it could be lights out for him, like we saw with Aljamain Sterling. So, but I am going to go with Merab. I think he gets this one done again. I don't see a finish. He's kind of a decision machine. Last finish he had was Marlon Moraes by ground and pound in September of 2021. And his last finish before that was in 2017 outside of the UFC. So I'm going to go with Merab Dvalishvili to rinse and repeat and get this one done again over Sean O'Malley by decision. Thanks.